Welcome to Between the Lines podcast. I'm Jess.
And I'm Janine.
And we both work at the Winkler branch of the South Central Regional Library.
In this podcast, we talk about books with our own twist. We talk about just the first half and predict where it might be going.
And finish reading the book and discuss the second half.
There will be snark, there will be spoilers, and depending on the book, there may be references to violence, sex, or other adult topics.
So if that's not for you, stop listening now.
All right, let's get into this week's book.
All right, today we are discussing The Wager, a tale of shipwreck, mutiny, and murder by David Grann. On January 28, 1742, a ramshackle vessel of patched-together wood and cloth washed up on the coast of Brazil. Inside were 30 emaciated men, barely alive, and they had an extraordinary tale to tell. They were survivors of His Majesty's ship, The Wager, a British vessel that had left England in 1740 on a secret mission during an imperial war with Spain. While The Wager had been chasing a Spanish treasure-filled galleon known as the Prize of All the Oceans, it had wrecked on a desolate island off the coast of Patagonia. The men, after being marooned for months and facing starvation, built the flimsy craft and sailed for more than 100 days, traversing nearly 3,000 miles of storm-racked seas. They were greeted as heroes. But then, 6 months later, another, even more decrepit craft landed on the coast of Chile. This boat contained just 3 castaways, and they told a very different story. The 30 sailors who landed in Brazil were not heroes. They were mutineers. The first group responded with countercharges of their own, of a tyrannical and murderous senior officer and his henchmen. It became clear that while stranded on the island, the crew had fallen into anarchy, with warring factions fighting for dominion over the barren wilderness. As accusations of treachery and murder flew, the Admiralty convened a court-martial to determine who was telling the truth. The stakes were life and death, for whomever the court found guilty could hang. The Wager is a grand tale of human behavior at the extremes told by one of our greatest nonfiction writers. Grann's recreation of the hidden world on a British warship rivals the work of Patrick O'Brian. His portrayal of the castaways' desperate straits stands up to the classics of survival writing such as The Endurance, and his account of the court-martial has the savvy of a Scott Turow thriller. As always with Grann's work, the incredible twists of the narrative hold the reader spellbound. This is the 5th nonfiction book by David Grann. It became a bestseller, topping the New York Times bestseller list in the nonfiction category for its first week of publication. In July 2022, Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio acquired the screen rights to the book. The project is supposed to reteam the key actors and companies standing behind the recent adaptation of Grann's previous book, Killers of the Flower Moon. David Grann is a #1 New York Times bestselling author and an award-winning staff writer at the New Yorker magazine. According to a profile in Slate, Grann has a reputation as a workhorse reporter, which has made him a popular journalist who inspires a devotion in readers that can border on the obsessive. 7 of his works have been made into or optioned for movies, including 4 books as well as essays. So there you go.
Well, what do you think of the cover?
The cover is your typical, stormy seas with a ship on it. I don't know.
Nice detail, Janine.
What else would you say about the cover?
I think it's a good cover.
It makes me a little bit want to go swimming, because whenever I see water, I want to go swimming.
Yeah.
But not in that water, but...
Makes me want to buy a ship.
Okay. I will say, I wish that there was a diagram of a ship in this book with all the parts labeled, because I know...
I can provide that to you if you like.
Virtually nothing about ships. The detailed stuff.
I know lots about ships.
I know.
I am a massive ship nerd. I'm just a massive nerd in general. But, I do like the cover in that it is not... Okay, like I said, massive ship nerd. When you've got a ship supposed to be in a storm, running full sail, take them down. Okay. You need just enough sail to keep her heading into the wind, because otherwise it's not going to work. So when people do paintings with a full sail, it irks the heck out of me.
You don't say.
Drives me absolutely batty. This one does not. So
okay, so it's a win in your book already.
Yes.
So
the cover is a lot more accurate in terms of that, and I will straight up judge a book by its cover on that regard.
Yeah, I think
because do your research.
I think in general we all do judge books by their covers, so
definitely.
It does
We're judging people.
it does give you a sense of like stormy seas and rocking ships and whatever. Like it's, yeah.
This is not your Sunday afternoon sail.
No, definitely not. So yeah, I mean, in that sense, it's good. Yeah. It's not like, okay, let's be honest, this is not a book I would have probably picked to read myself. That being said, the first quarter of the book, so the first half of what we have read, I really wanted to throw the book across the room because I was so bored. There was so many details, and I was like, let's... By the end of the first half, I was like, okay, I can get into this if it keeps going like this.
You like the mayhem and mutiny part of it?
I do. I like the part, actually, my favorite part was when the Coesquar people...
Yeah, that I found quite interesting. I wasn't aware of them in that area of Patagonia. And the fact that they actually have like fires in their canoes and dogs are just a regular thing.
Really enjoyed learning about their culture.
Yeah.
And I found that part really fascinating.
I was very annoyed that the idiots
drove them away.
Well,
yeah, because I mean, they're men.
They would help you survive.
Yeah, no, well, they're men. They're stupid men have to be in charge of everything.
No offense to the non-stupid men, but... You're fine, you know. You're allowed to live.
Well, it's a power struggle, right? Like
that straight up is.
So much of what this book is a power struggle. And I just found the first parts really, like when they were preparing to leave and whatever, like just very dull.
See, I found that fascinating because I know enough about ships to go, oh, don't do that, no, stop, don't.
Yeah, see,
like there was enough red flags popping up where I'm like, oh, this is not gonna go well.
And so the thing is, like, I think the writer assumes the reader has a certain amount of knowledge about these things.
I wouldn't say so. I think he did a pretty decent... I'm the terrible judge of this.
Because
I'm a ship nerd.
You know these things, you understand them. I do not.
I thought he did a pretty decent job of doing kind of a general rundown of this is a ship, this is a staff, the crew, this is how it works kind of thing. To the point where I was like, okay, we know this, move on. But to be fair, not everybody knows that, so maybe we don't move on. I thought he did a decent job of keeping it interesting at the very least. Like, it wasn't like 4,000 years ago we had a ship that had this, it had this armament, it had, 15 black powder cannons, blah, blah, blah.
It wasn't like that. But, like, when he uses ship language for parts of the ships and stuff, I don't know what any of that is. And he doesn't always explain what certain things are.
Yeah.
So that part, sometimes I was like, I don't know what this is. And then when I'm not engaged, my mind wanders. And so that I'm not absorbing.
Oh, look, a seagull.
Well, I start thinking about other things, right? So then all of a sudden I'm like, what? And then I have to like reread it. It takes me a long time to get through it. And then I just feel angry because I'm like, this is so dull. And once they actually like got out to sea and things started happening, like... For me, it was a little better. I did get a little sense of Lord of the Flies when they were on the island.
Fairly certain Lord of the Flies is based on events specifically like this.
Well, yeah. But, I don't know. I just have really high hopes for the second half because...
I am looking forward. I was annoyed I had to stop. I was thoroughly enjoying it. I'm like, this is fascinating. I'm learning things. And, we have to stop now. Darn it.
Yeah, well...
They do... Okay, I will say the one thing that irks me, he uses very American terms. He's talking about the British Navy, and he keeps saying boatswain. It's not. It's bosun. It's a bosun's mate. Stop it.
Okay. Deep breath,
Every
Jess.
time I have to go through, what's this guy? Oh, that guy again. Call him the right thing.
Well, I mean...
I am very persnickety about this kind of stuff, and to the point where I'm not the best person to talk about this stuff because I will nitpick everything to death. Don't even get me started on Pirates of the Caribbean. Not everyone has to have a tricorn, because that's not how it worked.
See... Pirates of the Caribbean is like...
I can forgive it a little bit, but...
That's where my boat knowledge comes from.
Okay. May I recommend, if you're going to enjoy this book, some homework. Watch Master and Commander and Horatio Hornblower. It will do a much better job of teaching you the basics of the ship and the basic roles and positions of everyone and what their responsibilities actually are. Like, the gunner's mate is starting to tick me off because he is way overstepping. He may be experienced. The captain may be relatively new. What he's pulling is not kosher. Like,
Well, it's a power struggle.
yes, it definitely is. But the basic, yeah. Watch that, read that. I think that will do a lot better job of
Okay.
explaining a lot of the stuff than I ever could.
But will I fall asleep?
No, Horatio Hornblower is actually fascinating. It's eight about hour-long movies. Master and Commander is a lot shorter, and they go around the coast of around the Horn as well. So and they go to the Galapagos.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yes.
So while I was reading this book, there is a man, Captain Kidd, and there's a song, Captain Kidd. The whole time, every time his name came out, that song popped into my head, so I was singing Captain Kidd in my head a good chunk of the time while I was reading this book.
Hey, whatever works. There's like nothing for sea shanties, that's for sure. Like, they don't go into that much other than the Commodore on his ship. They would have Sunday rest period or music, that kind of thing.
So, is the livestock on the ship for food purposes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. They're not pets.
No, well, I knew that, but I was like, why would they have livestock? It must be for food.
Because if you can keep, say, a goat or a cow, you've got milk. Got milk, you don't have water.
Or if you keep 2 goats and 2 cows, you could also have meat.
Yes. Yeah. Chickens.
Because you
got
can
eggs, you got
breed. Okay.
And they also drank a lot more beer and wine and rum because that would spoil a lot less quickly than the water. Because you got to remember, the water is not just straight up like from a creek. So it would often spoil, and that's where you'd get a lot of your health problems and whatnot.
Yeah, there are a lot of gross ailments associated with ship life. I did not enjoy reading about those.
Found it fascinating. Because I'm broken.
It's gross.
Thing is, though, something as simple as limes. The whole second epidemic there, not even a thing.
Yeah.
Like the wild celery that they were eating on the island cured their scurvy. Something as simple as that. Like,
When I was at
glass of
Bible college,
lemonade.
when I was at Bible college, we had an ongoing joke about scurvy. There was one girl who was always like, "You're gonna get scurvy." I
Was
don't
she
know.
a pirate?
No, it was just a thing.
Okay.
And then I feel like I heard a story in the news like a while ago. Some guy who only ate like craft dinner and then got scurvy or something.
Oh, people
like
still
that.
get scurvy these
Yeah.
days. But generally, it's a case you show up to the hospital and it's like,
Have an orange.
you have scurvy. Eat some oranges.
Yeah.
Like,
No, but it was. So I kind of chuckled at the scurvy because that was just an ongoing joke back in
yeah.
my late teens, early 20s. But yeah, no, there was a lot of grossness.
Ship life is inherently gross.
Yeah, so I'm learning. What?
Depending whether or not I should actually say this. They ate rats a lot because a ship always had rats. Rats would often eat, and their main food source was the grain stores and that kind of thing. So they were fat and healthy. And then you ate the rats. They're better if you soak them in vinegar. It's for the gaminess.
You sound like you're speaking from experience, and I don't.
I have not eaten rat. However, well, this isn't my first ship book.
Yeah, moving right along then. There was one line that made me chuckle. He said, "Who for once was not surly." He was talking about one of the sailors, and I was like, huh,
Yeah.
that's fair. I just thought it was funny.
Thing I did find interesting, John Byron. Lord Byron, like the infamous Lord Byron.
Yeah,
Poet. His grandfather.
yeah.
I'm like, huh.
So we know that he survives.
Yes, because there's no indication of him being married before, because he's still
he's like
midshipman.
16 years old or something like that, right?
Oh, back in the good old days, though.
Oh, I guess true enough. True.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean,
no.
it would have been still quite young, but you know.
Yeah, I know. That's like there was a few familiar names in the book, and I thought, oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And yeah, Byron was one of them.
I did find the fact that, is it the captain of the Pearl was the son of one of the lords in the Admiralty? And he didn't even make it to Spain. Like, they're loading up on wine in Madeira, and he's like, nope, I'm out. I've been feeling poorly.
Yeah.
I must go home now.
And then they all gave him a hard time for feeling poorly.
Well, yeah. I mean, dude, Really? I mean, you got this position because your daddy gave it to you.
Yeah, well,
And you can't even do that?
that's what you get from nepotism.
Yep. But,
Yeah, the one thing also, considering how long ago this is a very comprehensive telling account of what happened.
well, when you think about it, you've got 3 primary records, as far as I understand, as a bare minimum. You've got the captain's log, you've got the gunner's log, and you've got Lord Byron, or Grandpa Byron.
Grandpa Byron.
Midshipman Byron.
Well, he would have been Lord Byron at some point.
No, he was the second son.
Oh, right. But then how did his son become Lord Byron?
I don't know, he probably died. His brother probably died. His brother was crazy.
Yeah,
So
I think they talked about that.
I suspect the title passed to him at some point after the voyage. But Midshipman Byron also kept a fairly detailed log, it seems.
Yeah,
So,
but they also talked about how a lot of the records had been destroyed because they thought somebody was trying to hide something, which
Yes.
I'm very curious about.
that's the thing. In the summary here, it says, let's see. First group responded with countercharges of their own of a tyrannical and murderous senior officer and his henchmen. But they did not say captain. So, I am curious. I suspect it's going to be the gunner, whose name I do not remember. Because he is tiptoeing right up to the line of insubordinate and then sticking his nose across of it.
Bulkley. That's
Him.
his name, right?
Yep.
I don't know how to say that, but
Old Bucky Barnes. I suspect it'll be him, although he is not an officer.
no.
Sort of. He's a warrant officer, which is not an officer. You're not in the officer's mess. I suspect it'll be him, because quite honestly, the rest of them don't seem organized enough to form a mutiny.
That's
Like,
true. He is very,
And,
he's gunning for that job.
oh, straight up. So far, I like the captain. He seems like a decent captain.
Yeah.
He could be consulting with his men a little bit more, but he's done a relatively decent job considering the circumstances and the fact that this is his, third ship now?
Is it his third or his second? Is the captain, is it the sheep?
Was he not the sloop, the Pearl, and the Wager?
I can't remember. I was gonna
For
make
sure, second one anyway.
I was gonna make myself a chart of all the sailors, but then I didn't. I probably fell asleep. Yeah, no, I don't remember that part. But anyway,
Well, like, he's considering it's his third ship, his third crew in, I think, by the time they shipwrecked, it was 6-7 months since they set out from Plymouth or Portsmouth or wherever they were from. He's doing pretty well.
yeah,
Like, even his determination to go down with his ship, we've seen
yeah,
less valor from worse men.
yeah, that's true. He was gonna stay on the ship and not leave, but then they could rescue him. Once they got to the shipwreck part is when it started getting interesting for me. I don't know why. It just seemed like
You like mayhem.
I guess. I don't know.
That's the thing. I'm not gonna. I'm finding the entire book fascinating.
Yeah.
The thing that caught me was, and I don't know why I've never picked up on this before. It's bloody obvious. I should know this. So, around Cape Horn, very well known for being like the most treacherous seas pretty much in the world. Part of the reason for this, and I should have picked up on it, there's nothing to stop the water as it circles the globe. So it just picks up speed and picks up speed and picks up speed. There's nothing in terms of landmass. And you've got a fairly narrow strait between Antarctica and the tip of South America that forces it through a bottleneck. No wonder the weather's bad. Like,
Sure.
I knew it was bad, but I never thought super hard about the reason why. So, but no, it's fascinating. Still no sign of the Spanish that they're trying to find.
No. I wonder if the Spanish will ever appear.
Well, is it the Centurion, the Pearl? Where's the Pearl gone now? They had 5 ships in the Armada. They have still at least 4 left.
But we don't know.
We don't know what they're doing.
other ships are either.
So they may run into the Spanish at some point. But they have, considering this is a time of war, they've had very, very little confrontation with other ships. Like the Pearl running away from the Spanish convoy. Not convoy. There's much Spanish ships anyway that pretended to be the rest of their fleet. And they picked up on that and they skittered away. That's about the most they've actually run into the enemy. So, I don't know.
Every time you say pearl, all I can think is the black pearl.
Yes.
Because, like I said,
Well,
pirates is that and a few piratey books, YA books that I've read, which I
we're
enjoy.
doing very piratey things lately. This is a second pirate thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
I mean, this
true.
isn't pirate. This is the Royal Navy, but
Yeah, but ships. Pirates need ships too.
generally.
Yes, but that's like... So yeah, I've read a few piratey type books, but
I'm looking forward to the trial and everything because I find those quite fascinating.
yeah.
Because if a captain loses his ship, he has to go before the Admiralty Board to determine whether or not it was his fault.
Mm-hmm.
And it can get very interesting. So, but even, I don't know. See, I find tall ships absolutely fascinating. Their construction, the whole 9 yards, like, it is ship nerd.
Well, then you should have been in Nova Scotia when I was there
Yeah.
in the year 2000 because they had a...
When I was 5 years old.
They had a tall ships festival. I don't know. All the tall ships from around the world came and docked in the Halifax Harbor, and you could go on them. There was a parade of just sailors. There was a parade of watching sailors walk past.
They should be sailing past.
Well, then they did do a parade of ships where they
Well, that's
sailed
more interesting.
when they sailed out of the harbor. So we watched the sailor parade. We watched the parade of ships. We toured some of the ships.
See, that's more
The
interesting.
Blue Nose was there.
The Blue Nose, I'm like, it's fine. It's a schooner. It's fine.
Well.
It's a schooner.
Whatever.
I'm brigantine or bust. Sorry. I'll take a brig. I'll take a brigantine. Either one's fine by me.
Those words mean nothing to me. However, you would have geeked out
Guaranteed.
on the tall ships.
Guaranteed.
I was like, cool, nice ships. Sailors, okay.
No, like I'm not gonna get into it. I'm not gonna go full nerd on everything.
Okay.
But put it this way, I could talk for hours about the literal construction of the ships and how clever it's like the Wager had 250 men on it.
Something like that, yeah.
It was 123 feet long. For the amount of men that are on these ships, they're not that big. Like,
That was kind of the sense I was getting.
a frigate is not exactly huge, and you're talking 400 or 500 men. It's crazy. They went from a watch of, I think they said, 80 men down to 6 on a watch. Like,
Yeah.
it's staggering, the numbers that they have. And because you're fitting that many men into such a small space, the accommodations they had to make in terms of everything.
Yeah.
Like, Byron, he was essentially sleeping just above the bilges. He was a middy. Like, he's essentially a junior officer. It's fascinating. Sorry.
Well,
I'll stop now.
I will say I have been on the non-such, and it is a little claustrophobic when you go down there.
The non-such is also teeny tiny, and
I know.
yeah,
I know it doesn't compare at all.
not in the slightest. One of the things I really, really want to do is the HMS Victory is in Portsmouth. That was the ship that Lord Nelson fought on in the Battle of Trafalgar. It's still there. It's a museum. You can go on the ship that fought in the Battle of Trafalgar. Like, that was like 1803, 1804-ish. Mind-boggling. Sorry, I'll stop.
Oh, goodness.
No, I would recommend that you watch, at the very least, Master and Commander. It's a movie. It's not the most accurate thing in the world. Horatio Hornblower, way more accurate, but probably too long for you. Although there's a mutiny, so you might like that.
Maybe.
But it does a pretty good job of explaining the different roles and the nerdy ship bits. Although I can also provide you with a diagram if you'd like.
I mean, it might help me a little.
Probably. Because you don't even know what a forestaysel is.
I do not. Like, literally nothing I know about ships. Because the pirate books don't talk about those details really either.
No, they're more, give me rum.
Yes.
Do you at least know what a yardarm is?
No.
Oh, good lord. So we're going to go away. We're going to do some serious educating of Janine. And then we'll be back.
To be fair, this isn't the type of book I usually read. And perhaps I'm nerdy about other things than ships.
Yeah, I'm nerdy about everything, apparently.
And
Oh, Bloody Jack. You should also read the Bloody Jack series. Or listen to it as an audiobook.
Bloody Jack.
Brilliant.
Okay.
10 out of 10 would recommend. I think it should be required reading for everyone.
Well, then, because I have a lot of extra time in my life
I know.
to do all of this reading and watching that you're suggesting.
Yes.
Can we somehow inject it into my brain while I sleep? 'Cause
Oh, wouldn't that be lovely?
Oh, that would be amazing.
I would be learning about nuclear physics. That'd be very weird dreams.
I know. Oh my goodness, I was dreaming about Ree Drummond the other day.
Ree Drummond? That's a nightmare, Janine?
No, I like Ree Drummond.
How? Sorry, I'll stop.
I'm nerdy about Ree Drummond, okay? I don't mock you for your ship nerdiness. Don't mock me for my Ree Drummond nerdiness.
I'm nerdy about tall ships and sailing, not one particular redhead.
I mean, it's not just her as a person. I like to watch her show and
Okay.
whatever. I've been
I'll
watching.
stop judging.
Yes, please do. I've been watching her show a lot lately because we went to her
Drummondville.
Drummondville. Sure, let's call it that. So I started watching the show from the beginning. I've seen a lot of the episodes, but I'm going to watch the whole way through. But I watched a lot when I was on holidays. And somehow
so it's
that
just overload.
made it into my dreams. Yeah.
Well, I mean, strange things do make it into your dreams. I'm not going to lie. Tall ships make it in my dreams.
I'm not surprised.
That's not at all uncommon. Mm-hmm. As well as undersea volcanoes and laser guns.
I also dream about work a lot.
That's nightmares again, Janine.
That is nightmares. Ree Drummond was not nightmares, but work, yeah. You know things are bad at work when I start dreaming about it.
Yep. I mean, I don't dream that I'm covering books on a tall ship, unfortunately.
That would be
Would
tricky.
be nice. Would be nice, though.
It'd be tricky to cover books on a tall ship, I feel like.
Not really.
It's too wavy to do a good job.
You're working on a very small space.
That's true.
Oh.
But
Anywho,
still.
I have had too much caffeine. This was a bad idea.
Oh, goodness.
I am looking forward to the second half. I may read it tonight, actually, and I don't normally read it that quickly. It is fascinating. I find the group dynamics in this kind of situation, survival tales, like I read Robinson Crusoe years ago, fascinating.
Swiss Family Robinson.
That one I didn't like as much. They annoyed me.
I watched the movie.
Yep, I did too.
And I did enjoy that. So there you
You
go.
lost me when there was a zebra.
I don't remember. I was quite young when I watched it, I feel like.
I watched a version from like the 1960s, 70s, I'd say.
The Disney
There was
one.
a zebra on a deserted island, and I
probably-
went, nope.
It's probably the Disney one. I think that's the one I saw.
Yeah, I had problems with monkey butlers.
Really? Wasn't there a monkey butler in Daughter of the Deep?
Yeah, but that is not a survival book.
So then it's okay.
Yes.
In that
See,
situation.
Robinson Crusoe, again, me weirdie, he shipwrecks. He finds a couple of kernels of grain, he plants them, and he harvests them. And he plants them again, he harvests them again. That kind of stuff, where I'm like, no, show me how to survive.
Okay.
Like, I will read those for days.
Have you read The Martian?
I've watched the movie, haven't read the book.
Okay, because doesn't he do that also in space, like plant
potatoes.
things and yeah?
Yeah.
I haven't read it or seen the movie, but
It's fine. It'd be better if it wasn't what's his face, Matt Damon. It's a bit overdone.
okay.
Yep. But like, Two Against the North or Lost in the Barren Lands, one of my favorite books. The Curse of the Viking Gold, I want to say is the second one. Not as good, but still a good book. It's surviving in the tundra with very little. Like, that kind of thing interests me. The fact they're finding wild celery, the fact that they are eating sea urchins, which I'm sorry, when it was described as 4 or 5 yolks, I'm like, nope. Do it if I have to, but nope.
I don't think yolks is really.
That's what they call it, but
I know that's what they called it.
But-
Have you ever seen?
I am a sea creature nerd. Yes, I've seen them.
Okay, I wouldn't necessarily say yolk, but
It's a weird
it's a weird
choice of descriptor,
Yeah.
but yeah, you know, there's been weirder. But like that kind of thing, where it's irking me a little bit that they have wood, they have trees, they could do a little bit more surviving than they're currently doing. That being said, it's better than some where they're like, oh, we're starving on land and we only have this small boat. How will we get home? There's a shipwreck right there with full stores. How's about we go shopping? Like, these guys at least, actually
They did go shopping.
salvage from the wreck. Like, good.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you need to do.
Yep.
Things like timbers, sails, lines, like, you
Yep.
gotta do that kind of thing. And these guys actually did, which I'm like, thank you, good. This is a lot better in some survival aspects than some that I've read. There's still certain things that drive me bonkers, but,
Yeah.
I think we've established with about a year of podcast now that there's something in every book that will drive me bonkers, so it probably shouldn't be.
Jess has strong opinions, people.
This just in.
Yeah. Breaking news.
Like, but I know we're only halfway through. 10 out of 10 recommend this book to anybody.
Really? Anybody?
Seriously, anybody.
Okay.
I think it is excellent.
I only got into it the last 30, 40 pages.
But now you're into it. And now they've got you.
Ish.
And now they won't let you go. Haha.
Now we'll see. Will I go home and read it tonight? No, because before I started this book, I was reading a different book that was very interesting, and I had
one?
to. It's called None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. It's a thriller. It's her latest.
Sounds familiar.
It's new. It just came out a month or two ago. It's a very good thriller, and I had to stop reading that one so that I could read this one. And so I'm going to go back to that one because it is 10 times more interesting than this one. I'm sorry to tell you.
To you, maybe?
Yes, to me. Absolutely. So yeah, I will not go home and read this book tonight because I'm not that into it. I'll probably save it till the end of next week.
3 minutes before we start recording, Janine's still
Yes.
reading the book.
Put it this way, I spend a good chunk of the day Saturday reading and a good chunk of the day Sunday reading / sleeping. Both days reading / sleeping. That will probably be 2 weekends from now, the same thing. They just made it sound so amazing there on Wager Island.
I will say the seaweed cakes that they were eating, those got me a bit. I'm like, no, seaweed. It just always feels like it's going to have bits of rotten fish stuck in it.
I do feel like, though, if you're hungry enough, you'll eat anything.
Oh, if I'm starving, yeah. If I'm starving, I'll eat anything, of course. Because I'm starving. But I do like the fact that the book has photos of the... How did you pronounce it again? Kaweskar camps.
Oh.
Like, their dwellings and their culture is absolutely fascinating.
It is very fascinating.
Like, the fact that the British were like, wear as many clothes as you can, you're freezing. And these guys are like, you've got a loincloth. Real men don't need more.
That was, to be honest, my favorite part of the book was when they were talking about those people and their culture and their
Like, I could
how
read
they
an
lived.
entire book just on that.
It was very interesting.
Like, a remnant of the Wager wreck that was discovered in 2006. That's the thing. I want to know at the end of the book as well if they actually have any wreckage from the ship, like if it was rediscovered or whatever. I mean, I know it broke up pretty much, but you still have
Yeah.
like cannons and stuff like that.
And it can't have been too deep into the ocean
being
because
on the coast there. Whoa, my word! There's a lot of bibliographies.
yeah, no, that book is not as long as it appears. When I first got it, I was like, holy cow, this is a big book. I don't know if I can do this. But then the last quarter of the book is just notes and bibliography.
Yeah, I was checking because I was doing an ebook. I was looking like, I'm only at 20%. Did I? Oh, right.
Yeah.
Because the bibliography at the back, you're way off in terms of your actual amount
Yeah.
of read.
The book itself is only 200 and some pages. 257.
Yeah.
That's not that long, really, if you think about it.
Tells you though it's well researched.
Yeah.
Which, with some of these, this book reads in a very similar way to Robinson Crusoe.
Okay.
It reads as a story. It's not, they did this, and then they did this, and then they did this. Or the very, you have some historical nonfiction books that are just drier than dirt. You could have the most fascinating topic, and it is written in such a way where it's are you trying to put me to sleep?
Yeah.
This seems intentional at this point. This is written so that you have a story. It's quite linear in terms of everything. And as they were going through characters at the beginning, I'm like, that guy's going to be important. That guy's going to be important.
Yeah.
You didn't really get a whole lot of unimportant characters that they
No.
threw in just, because we're bored at the moment. it's an intentionally written book.
Yes. I do not disagree with that. And you could see like each chapter sort of focused on a different one of the kind of three main characters that are going to be throughout the book. To me, it just felt like it took a long time to get to the point where the story felt like it was finally moving somewhere and was more interesting to me. As somebody who is not interested in all of the background, let's get on with what's actually going to happen here. Like, let's get to the action.
See, I found in a way, like they went, let me see, I'm going to steal the map here. They went from Portsmouth, that's where they started out from. Portsmouth, yeah. They went there to Madeira, where they basically did a stop off, and the main thing there was, we got lots of wine, and we got rid of the useless guy. Which, a lovely way of describing it. But then they popped down pretty quick to Port Desire and the Strait of Magellan. Like, they missed 95% of the journey in terms of, we traveled for 3 weeks, and nothing happened.
Right.
Although,
I appreciate that part.
was it Nelson, I think, that said being in the British Navy is 3 weeks of sheer boredom to come to 3 weeks of sheer terror. So, yeah, I mean, it tracks in terms of general, this is a ship and how a ship do.
Yeah, and I don't disagree. Like I said, the fact that this happened in the 1700s and he was able to write a 257-page book about it with seemingly quite a lot of detail is pretty incredible, and it's not poorly written.
It's written in such a way to keep your interest. I know it's not your cup of tea.
No, but it's not like I will say I'm looking forward to the second half, like seeing how everything shakes out and whatever.
But
it's just, yeah, like the beginning part with all of I just wanted to get to the action.
see, I found it fascinating that the Thames froze and the hulks and stuff were stuck there, so.
Yeah, that part was
And
interesting.
the fact that ships burnt off and rot in the harbor. Like,
Well, I mean, it
and
is
press
wood.
gangs and typhoid and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, it just was a little slow for my taste at the beginning.
You would have preferred a bit more Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, well, not necessarily that, but just let's get to the shipwreck. Let's get to the mutiny. But I did right at the end. It's finally getting a bit more interesting.
The thing is, I find a lot of that stuff, the build-up, quite interesting, because things like how long has your captain actually been a captain or been in command of his own ship, that kind of thing, you know that is going to affect the mutiny later. Like, when it's like, oh, he was appointed by the Admiralty, who was his dad, you know that's not going to go well, because he has to be a dang good captain for the crew not to go, your daddy put you here. Oh, what did your daddy say?
Yeah.
Like, the setup to me is interesting because of things like that, yeah. And press ganging guys that already have typhoid and ones that were already in the sailors' old folks' home that were not really supposed to be going back to war again because, you know, missing limbs and things. That, I'm like, well, this isn't going to go well. Like, I mean, there's a shipwreck. I know it's a shipwreck. It says shipwreck right on the front.
Yeah.
But all those contributing factors,
Right.
like, they are in there for a reason,
No, I understand that.
which is interesting to me. But you just like shipwrecks and murder.
Well, if I am going to read nonfiction, generally it's true crime. So,
Yeah.
murder.
I get
mostly.
the feeling we're getting more into the true crime aspect that you will enjoy.
Yeah. Or a biography. I guess this is partially biography-ish. Biography adjacent-ish.
See, that's the thing. I don't like biographies.
It depends.
Like, I will say, my favorite biography is Stalin's daughter. Would recommend that one. She showed up at the embassy in, it's been years, I forget which country. They're like, hi, I'm Stalin's daughter, I'd like to defect. And they're like, what? They didn't know Stalin had a daughter in 1952. Like, let me double check and make sure you are who you say you are. And they're like, oh, no, it turns out you are actually Stalin's daughter? Okay, you can defect, come on in. Like, it's fascinating, and some of the stories she tells of Stalin as a father are, well, they give you a different view of someone that you often read about in only political terms. For example, he had a parrot. The parrot mocked him. He did not like it, so he beat her to death with his pipe. What a rational man. Glad we let him rule the country. But other than that, I mean, if she wasn't Stalin's daughter, her life itself is kind of boring. Like, it has to be in relation to something.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is interesting. I don't know. Like, I would not necessarily read a book about John Byron himself.
No.
Like, I'm sure he lived a very interesting life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was in a shipwreck. But
And a mutiny.
beyond that, I'm like, it's fine. I don't care to read about somebody's particular life.
It depends on, like, more. If I'm going to read a biography, it's more than likely a celebrity biography.
And I don't care about celebrities,
care
and
about
that's why I don't read biographies.
Yep.
So,
But yeah, it's a fine book. It's just, for me, the start was a bit slow. I mean, I get why that information is important. Do I necessarily want to read all of it? No. And had I read it over more than just like 2 days, that might have also helped.
and if you didn't keep falling asleep.
Yes.
I will stay. Still way better than, what's the Harper Lee one that we read?
Furious Hours.
Furious Hours. I
so
don't care
much.
about the dam.
So much
Like,
better than that one.
This one, if we're comparing nonfiction books,
Yes.
like, this
No.
one, he puts in information where it's like, that seems relevant. Not an entire chapter about a dam that literally doesn't show up. The road to the dam does. Why didn't we talk about building the road instead?
Yeah. No,
Like-
I will agree with you there.
So if we're comparing it to that, it's better than that.
That book was a huge disappointment to
I
me.
couldn't believe it's like Barack Obama's like favorite book of the year. I'm like,
I
Barack,
know.
did you read any other books?
And one of my very favorite podcasts recommended it.
Can't
And
trust them again.
I know. I was like, really? This?
Disappointing.
Oh, it's so disappointing.
Like-
Do not recommend.
I recommend this book. I don't recommend that book.
I'm not sure if I'm going to recommend this one yet.
I would recommend this book as long as you're not Janine, which the rest of you aren't, so you should be fine.
Ouch.
So,
I might recommend it when we finish.
yeah. I am curious to see how the dynamic between everybody is going to. And I really want to know. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's that dude, the gunner, but
Yeah.
there's
That
also
would be
a
my
point where
guess
I'm going,
also.
you are overstepping.
Yes, well, that's what makes these stories exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's just like, and everyone lived happily ever after.
Yeah, you wouldn't like that either, so...
Yeah, that's true. The happily ever after ones, I'm going, why didn't anyone die?
Like, what does it take to make you happy, really?
This book.
Are you sure? Because, all right.
I like this book. It's a great book. Anyway, can we be done with
Yeah,
this
let's
now?
be done this now. We'll see you
We'll
next
be back
time.
after Janine has her fill of mayhem and murder, and I nerd out about more ships and make Janine watch movies.
We are back with part 2 of The Wager by David Grann. So, did part 2 meet your expectations?
Yes.
Good. I'm glad.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I think he did a great job, frankly. When he was going through at the end, and he's going like, this guy wrote a book, and this guy wrote a book, and that guy wrote a book. I'm like, okay, you had a ton of source material to work off of.
Uh-huh.
But he still did a very good job of kind of putting it all together into one kind of comprehensive thing that hit most everybody's viewpoints.
Yeah. So, I think the book was well written. If I was more interested in this type of thing, I would have really enjoyed it.
Tried to let me down easy.
No, I'm just telling you how I feel about the book. For me, there were parts of it that were very interesting, but the whole court-martial part kind of fell a little flat for me because I was hoping for more
I
excitement there.
honestly thought that would be a bigger deal than it ultimately was. Ultimately,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, we're going to go on a ship in Portsmouth Harbor. We're going to ask you some questions, but we're not going to do a whole lot of questioning because
Yeah.
then you might tell us things that we actually have to then deal with, and we really don't want to deal with
Yeah.
them. So, like, oh, you guys are good? You're good? Okay, cool, bye.
Yeah. Like they did literally nothing.
It was very, if we don't ask, they can't say, and we don't have to prosecute.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, but there was a lot of really interesting like facts and things like that. Like the fact that if they're shipwrecks, they don't get paid, which I thought was really interesting.
But if they're still salvaging from the wreck, and they can still get materials and
Yeah.
supplies from the wreck, then they do still get paid.
Right.
Because, you know, Britain likes complicated laws.
Yeah. But also, I was questioning the truthfulness of some of these men's journals and accounts of what happened.
I was just gonna say Byron seems very, how to put this? Strategically, neutral. We'll put it that way. It might all be accurate. I don't know. I wasn't there. You can
Yeah.
tell by the fact that I still like celery. They seem to have eaten a lot of celery.
And also, you're not like 300 years old.
Oh, and I'm not 300 years old. Important detail to note there. His account, if I recall correctly, was written after about 2 decades in the Navy. After did he hit Rear Admiral?
I think so.
I think he hit Rear Admiral. And it felt very much like he wrote it so as to give an account from his perspective, but also not to implicate himself in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Because his perspective from the entire thing was, oh, those guys were fighting and those guys were fighting, and I was just sitting over here doing nothing.
That's just minding my business.
Which, it is very difficult to remain neutral in that kind of situation. And when everyone around you hates the captain and you're still like, I'm sort of loyal to him-ish,
Yeah.
there's not a whole lot of tolerance for that.
Yeah.
So I question how true his account actually is.
Yeah.
I can understand not being 110% honest with it, because the reality is mutiny is generally taken quite seriously. Apparently not in this case, but in general it's taken quite seriously. And that can absolutely shoot your career in the foot.
Yeah.
So I kind of get it from that perspective. But on the other hand, then don't write a book.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, you didn't have to. You weren't the captain trying to clear his name. You weren't the gunner.
Bulkley?
Bulkley, yeah, trying to implicate the captain so as to clear his own name preemptively. You didn't have to do anything, so you could have just shut up about the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, that was, Bulkley is the one that I was kind of questioning a bit, because...
Oh, straight up.
Obviously, he was trying to make it look like he didn't do anything wrong, but that guy was power hungry.
That guy. I mean, both Bulkley and the captain. And I mean, Captain Sheep. I'm sorry. You say Captain Sheep, and I just got this image of some guy pinching pennies. It's a terrible
I know,
name.
it's terrible. I mean, you can't help that it's his name, but...
He is who he is. Both of them, I don't think, handled the situation correctly. I think both of them were partially to blame. You don't shoot a guy in the head and then go, assholes.
Yeah.
Like, that's not how anything works. But at the same time, Bulkley was angling from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he saw a weakness and knew he had an opportunity.
Yeah.
And...
Yeah.
I don't trust his account.
No, and so one thing I kind of said was, I assume that there are other sources that agree with his account, because he wrote, he used a lot of Bulkley's, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but a lot of his, journal or book or whatever in this book. So I was wondering if,
Yeah, see, the thing, though, is if you are either a junior officer or one of Bulkley's crew, gang, whatever, it's kind of in your best interest not to contradict him.
I guess.
So I wouldn't be at all surprised that the stories match.
I guess that's true.
Because if you go along with what he says, he's to blame. Any court-martial ruling, anything like that will fall on him.
Yep.
As soon as you separate yourself from the herd, you have the potential that it falls on you.
Right.
Which, I mean, just 3, 4, 5 years of dealing with this fallout, I can understand wanting to just shut up and go back to regular life.
That's true. But 2 times they did leave people stranded on islands. So there is also that. But
the fact that 3 of those guys came back, where I'm like,
I know.
Okay.
I thought those guys were goners.
Impressive.
I know. I was, that part I was shocked. Where'd these guys come from?
It's just I assumed you guys would be dead.
I know.
Sorry.
I know.
I think Bulkley was very much, he's one of those schemy, self-righteous guys.
Yes.
Put it that way. Don't get me wrong. I don't think the captain was fantastic.
No.
Because, and I don't think it's necessarily his fault either. He switched ships 3 times, was it?
Could be. A couple times anyway. Yeah.
Part of a captain's loyalty is... Part of a crew's loyalty to the captain is experience. And the reality is he's a very new captain that doesn't have any kind of reputation about being a good dude or anything.
Yeah.
It's Captain, good dude. But he also hasn't had any time with the crew to, actually take on a Spanish vessel where you have a bonding through battle kind of situation.
Nothing.
There's not really
this failed mission.
any kind of previous experiences that you can go back. Well, Captain did us good on that side, so he's the right person to follow now.
Yeah.
Because he's such a new captain, both as a captain and as captain of the Wager, all the odds were against him in terms of holding it together for a survival situation.
He's also slightly delusional.
I think he's also not the greatest guy in the world.
Well, there was one part when they were on the island, and I know that they're desperate, they're malnourished, yada yada yada.
Although they always seem to have flour.
I know. Where did all the flour come from?
I know.
And they were just eating it straight up, like, ugh.
Yep.
But anyway, they were there, and he still had it in his head that maybe they could, like, build a ship and still go after the Spaniards and, like, defeat them. And I just thought, buddy, like, I know literally nothing about ships and war and battle.
But you can't take them on in a sloop or a barge.
I know that that's a bad idea.
It's the Spanish Armada, for crying out loud.
Like, yeah. Like, you are delusional.
I can sort of, like, the whole, do we go back the way we came versus do we go on ahead to where we might find the Centurion and the other ships? I can kind of understand that because, like he pointed out at one point, the way that Buckley went was 250 or 2,500 miles longer or something like that. Plus you had to go back around the Horn, which...
Yeah.
Not great. But they apparently didn't listen to any of that, which I thought was a tad nonsense. They didn't do themselves any favors, frankly, in any of this. I forget where I was going with this. I think there is logic in his reasoning of continue the way we came. I don't think he has a hope in heck of battling the Spanish.
Well, he was still thinking he could defeat them.
Yeah.
And no.
Like, you guys had
cannot.
muskets.
Yeah, and your crew was like, what, 40 people?
Yeah. Muskets versus 25-pound cannon? Like,
No,
no, honey.
not happening.
I think they were at 90-something at that point.
Unless you're magical sailors. Are you magic?
But there's also a logic in it because, oh, sure, you might not win, but if you attack them, they're going to take you prisoner. If they're going to take you prisoner, at the end of the war, they're going to shift you back to England. They're going to do a prisoner exchange. So it's a roundabout way of getting home, but it is a way of getting home.
Unless they kill you first.
Unless they kill you first.
There's no guarantees there.
Yeah, but neither is there for going around the Horn and trying to make your way up the coast to Brazil.
I know.
Like, that's also no guarantee.
No.
Like, they got very lucky. They got a couple seals and whatnot, so.
In this situation, there's no guarantees, period. But
I was hoping they run into a penguin at some point.
no, there was no penguins, was it?
No, they mentioned the way that Buckley went. He was saying that there was birds and seals and penguins that they could eat. And I was hoping they run into a penguin just because the thought of a bunch of British malnourished guys seeing a penguin just amuses the heck out of me.
Yeah, but then they would have eaten it. And that's icky.
If they knew what it looked like. Just penguins are a weird thing. Anyway.
The part where they ate the dog, though, really got to me.
That part, I'm like, did you have to? I mean, I understand it, but did you have to?
I know. And I'm no big fan of animals to begin with, but I just thought, yuck.
No, it's one of those things where I'm like...
Yeah, I know.
That's unfortunate.
Desperate times, right? But yeah.
I don't know. It was one of those things where... I'm like, okay, what side would I be on if I was there? And then I go, nah, I'd be back in the hills. Like, I'm just like, you guys are nuts, I'm leaving. There's no good side to be on, that's the thing.
And there's...
I mean, hypothetically the captains, but only in that's the assumption that you actually get back to England.
Mm-hmm.
And that's mainly from a legal standpoint where I was with the good guy.
Yeah. But the fact that they made it back at all, to be honest, it's
impressive.
Kind of impressive, yeah.
Yeah.
But there was some stats that he had written closer to the end of the book where like 1,300 out of 2,000 men on this mission died.
Mm-hmm.
And while they did reclaim 400,000 pounds of booty, the cost...
Gotti or ill-gotten booty?
Yeah. The cost of the actual mission apparently was 43 million pounds, which I thought was like insane.
Oh, it's absolutely insane. But, okay, I will say... So the Centurion battled the Spanish ship.
Yep.
Captured the Spanish ship. And then they went on board. and they found some cheese. And it's written, he stuck his hand into the fatty mass, and I'm like, oh, that just put me off cheese for a while. I'm no cheese person to begin with, but oh my word. That was too much for me, thank
I've
you.
eaten cheese like 5 times since then.
Yeah, it's just that description of cheese where I'm like, nope. Ugh. I'm not a cheese person to begin with. I don't like the texture. I'm not a huge fan of the taste. It's an ingredient, not a food group. Ugh. I don't know. But I mean, there's gold or silver or something under it, so fair enough. But quite the descriptor there.
Oh, that's funny. But also that whole part with the centurion and the battle, and I thought, oh, is this really necessary to this book?
I think so.
Must I read this?
I was curious.
Okay.
I wanted to know what happened to the rest of the ships. Like, the Pearl, gone. The Anna, gone. There's 4 ships left of the Centurion. 3 of them, gone. So, of this entire armada of ships, saying armada seems very generous, essentially 1 came back intact.
Yeah.
Like, that's not good odds.
No, it's
Even
really
if
not.
they did get lucky and get 1 ship that actually had some gold and whatnot on it.
Yeah. I mean, is David Grann a good writer? Absolutely.
Oh, definitely.
Do I still have a book of his that I want to read? Yes, I do.
Which one?
Killers of the Flower Moon.
Oh, right. Is that the one?
More of a true crimey one.
Movie came out just recently, too?
There was or is, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's definitely a good writer. And, I mean, this one, he definitely had a lot of source material for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the captain wrote a book, Buckley wrote a book, Byron wrote a book, the admiral, what's his face? That's gonna bug me now.
Anson?
Anson, yes. He sort of wrote a book. I mean, the Reverend wrote the book, but then it was ghostwritten by another guy who was hired by Anson to give Anson's account of it.
Yep.
So, Anson wrote a book? Ish?
Ish.
And there was another one. Oh, the schoolmaster. Thomas, somebody wrote a book.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of accounts anyway.
There's a lot of account. Yeah.
So, I think that definitely helps
for sure.
give kind of a well-rounded story. Because I was going to say at no point did it sound like it was this person telling it, but at the same time, Byron was kind of the lead narrator for a lot of it.
Well, I would say Byron and Bulkley,
Yeah.
I think, were sort of, that's where most of the info came from.
Yeah, I don't like Bulkley.
No, I didn't really like many of the characters.
Byron was okay, but I always kind of felt like it was
Yeah.
very much a whitewash version.
Yeah, he would be the one person that I was sort of thought was okay. Mm-hmm. But
I did find Cheap Byron and the other 8 guys they had there running into another group of indigenous people.
Mm-hmm.
Forget the name of the tribe. Anyway, very fortuitous.
Yes.
And the fact that they just disassembled their boats to carry them across, and they were broken down into 5 pieces, then they portage, and then they put the boats back together, and then we merrily on our way.
I know.
I'm like, cool. I want to know more. Like,
Yes.
I want to know more about the indigenous peoples of the region, which I get not putting into this book, because it's it's not a long book, but it's relatively long.
It's dense.
I wouldn't even say that.
Oh, I would.
And it's not dense. It reads well.
It's, I guess for somebody who's not familiar with that type of stuff,
Yeah.
it feels like a lot of information.
I liked this one better than Furious Hours,
Yeah.
because all of the information that you got was relevant.
Yes. And I'm not saying that it wasn't relevant. I'm just saying that.
Yes. But, like, because the information that you got was relevant, it didn't feel... Like, it felt very much like fiction. Like, it wasn't one of those where it's like, is this real? I can't tell. But the narration and the style of writing is as easy to read as fiction, I would say.
Okay.
As opposed to Furious Hours, where we have an entire chapter on a dam. And the only relevance is that on the road to the dam, someone got murdered. Like, really, come on. I'll give up on Furious Hours.
You need to... Yes, it was not the best book that we have read on this podcast.
No, but I'm still annoyed about the dam.
I know you are.
I want a non-fiction book to give me relevant information on the topic
Yes.
of the book.
Yes.
Not full-on, like, rabbit trails elsewhere.
No, for me it felt dense, I think, because a lot of the language was unfamiliar. They talked a lot about geography, which was kind of unfamiliar, like going here and going there. And yes, I can look at a map, that's fine. But it was just a lot of stuff that I'm not familiar with.
Yeah.
And then for me, it felt more like, and trying to keep all the names straight, because I felt like there was a lot of names of like minor characters that got thrown in a few times, and I was like, who's that guy again? Who's that guy again? And it's not like it's not a badly written book. For me, it was a little bit of a slog to get through it. Like, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like, I came into this having a decent knowledge of the Royal Navy at the time, decent knowledge of the hierarchy, of what a purser actually does. And
They buy purses?
not quite.
Aww.
Knowing, things like the Marines and their expectations of the bosun, not the boatswain. That's a bosun. Oh, it drives me batty. I know. Let's go full Elsa here. I came in knowing the hierarchy, knowing the ships, knowing the general expectations of a crew in any kind of situation. Mm-hmm. So I skipped through a lot of this. I didn't skip it. Like, it was easy to read because I knew the background.
Yeah.
And I like survival books. So, I mean, there was a couple times where I'm going, really, guys? Really? Seriously? Can't catch a single fish? But anyway, so for me, it was easy. Like, it's not saying that you have to have that information. I think you can definitely read it without it. But
Yeah, you can.
it wasn't a difficult book for me to read. I was kind of annoyed I had to stop reading it, actually.
See, and for me, the most interesting parts of this book were with the Indigenous people and their cultures and how they did things. Like, that for me was like, tell me more about that.
Yeah.
I want to know more about how they live and how they do things. And
David, if you're listening, we need that book now.
I don't know if that's
David, if you're listening, go back to writing. What are you doing listening to these people talk nonsense?
But for me, that was more interesting than the ship part. And I think I was expecting more action in the second half.
Not enough violence for you?
Well, I don't okay, so they sailed here and there was a storm and then they found an island and then they went a little further and then they went the wrong way and then these guys swam to shore and they left them there. And
they did I was expecting there to be a bit more information, frankly, about the journeys home, because so Buckley's, I don't want to say it had a lot of detail. It didn't have a lot of detail, but they kind of went through, left those guys there, ate a seal, moved on. They kind of had the stopping points and whatnot, and a couple, like, this guy died, that guy died kind of thing. I was expecting, once they got to England, and they kind of did and they lived happily ever after, they bounced back to Captain Sheep and Byron. Mm-hmm. But the way they got out was very... Like, they did a little bit on the Indigenous peoples that helped them out. Mm-hmm. But it was kind of meh. Yeah. Like, they didn't really... They kind of skipped over a bunch of stuff.
Yep.
Considering these guys came back, 2 years later? There was not 2 years worth of information at all. Like, it was kind of just...
Is it possible that maybe that information is not available?
Maybe. It was only 300 years ago, Janine. I expect some information.
Well, you got a whole book's worth of information. What more do you want?
Yeah, but I was expecting there to be a little bit more detail, which there wasn't. So, and given both Byron and Sheep were there and they both wrote books, I was kind of expecting there to be something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that and the final, it almost felt a little bit rushed at the end.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of went to okay, yeah, we had our court-martial where nothing happened.
Yeah, that part for me was disappointing. I was expecting more of a trial.
You wanted full John Grisham.
I absolutely did. I love John Grisham.
Yeah, I wanted a bit more of a trial. I wanted a little bit more of an investigation. But at the same time, I'm kind of not mad about the fact they're like, yeah, you guys can all go now. Because it's one of those things
been through enough.
Yeah, they've been through enough. Like, you want to punish them for not adhering to the laws of the sea when you're not on the sea, when they're going through an incredibly difficult situation that the admirals of the Admiralty haven't had to deal with. It's kind of one of those things where, if you had actually hung Byron for mutiny, I would have been annoyed.
Yeah.
That wouldn't have been fair. if you actually, I'm quite surprised that Cheap actually kept his captaincy.
Yeah.
Like, I was fully expecting the rank of captain to be stripped and like, no, you can go operate a fishing boat now kind of guy.
I was waiting for Bulkley to get punished also.
A little bit disappointed he didn't get anything.
Mm-hmm.
He was, yeah. I don't like the guy.
No.
I just do not like him. And his assumption that, because I'm doing this because it's morally right or morally superior, because I know better than the captain. It's like, no, you don't.
You don't.
You're a gunner's mate. Actually, you're a gunner, not a gunner's mate. Like, you've never actually had to be the leader. You've never had to make the tough decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So you do not know.
Yep.
And you've never had the scrutiny of 250 men going, why are we eating raw flour? Like,
yeah.
And I think he mentioned that at one point when they were going around the horn again in the sloop, that he'd never felt the weight of command before, and it was not as easy as he was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he kind of got his comeuppance a little bit there, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It felt very... There was a point where I'm like, this is very tabloidy in some ways. Once they got back to England, where like, let me tell you the true account.
Yes.
Like, you won't believe what happened next. Clickbaity. Very clickbaity after. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yep.
Oh. I do hope it gets turned into a movie.
I think, yeah.
There's Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio
Yeah.
acquired the screen rights, so
Yep.
fingers crossed.
I also, the other thing that I did find interesting in the book, there's a picture where they found a remnant of the shipwreck in 2006, which was not that long ago, really, which I thought was interesting that it was still there.
Relatively cold water.
Yeah. But yeah, that part too, I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah. No, I
Now
think
we know it's really real.
Did you think it wasn't really real?
Well, they could have all just made it up.
The Admiralty is not in the habit of making things up. Yeah. No, I enjoyed it. Now I need to go watch Horatio Hornblower. It really makes me want to watch Hornblower.
Yes.
Do you have any fun facts?
I do have some fun facts. I had a lot of fun with these fun facts, so there are a few of them, so bear with me.
They're fun facts.
They are. I thought they were fun. So, a shipwreck is the wreckage of a ship that is located either beached on land or sunken to the bottom of a body of water, just in case we were unclear about that.
I had questions, yes.
Shipwrecking may be intentional or unintentional. There were approximately 3 million shipwrecks worldwide as of January 1999, according to Angela Kroom, a science writer and author who specialized in the history of underwater archaeology. And this is an estimate that's rapidly endorsed by UNESCO and other organizations. Fun fact about shipwrecks. When a ship's crew has died or abandoned the ship, and the ship has remained adrift but unsunk, they are instead referred to as a ghost ship.
One of the most famous ghost ships is the Marie Celeste.
Huh, there you go. The captain goes down with the ship is a maritime tradition that a sea captain holds the ultimate responsibility for both the ship and everyone embarked on it, and in an emergency they will devote their time to save those on board or die trying. Although often connected to the sinking of the RMS Titanic in 1912 and its captain Edward Smith, the tradition precedes Titanic by several years. In most instances, captains forego their own rapid departure of a ship in distress and concentrate instead on saving other people.
Sorry, it just makes it sound like, oh shoot, we got problem, boys. Jump. Just booking it off the ship. Whee! Don't go. Captain, come back, it's fine. Sorry. Continue.
It often results in either the death or belated rescue of the captain as the last person on board. The tradition says that the captain should be the last person to leave their ship alive before it's sinking, and if they're unable to evacuate the crew and passengers from the ship, the captain will choose not to save himself even if he has an opportunity to do so. In a social context, especially as a mariner, the captain will feel compelled to take this responsibility as a social norm.
I feel like the captain should be the last person to leave their ship alive. Gives you a loophole if you're really mean.
True. True, it does.
Let's not go there.
In maritime law, the ship's master's responsibility for their vessel is paramount, no matter what its condition, so abandoning a ship has legal consequences, including the nature of salvage rights. Abandoning a ship in distress may be considered a crime that can lead to imprisonment. So, I could have gone on with more fun facts, but that's where I decided to cut it off. But I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, full credit to the captain. Like, he did try to be the last person to leave the ship, but he had the drunken monkeys there that wouldn't leave.
Yeah.
And
Also, he was injured at the time, I think, right?
injured, sick, something like that, yeah.
Or didn't they kind
And-
of drag him off the ship?
Yeah, they were basically like, you're coming with us now.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
What's the guy to do?
I think he tried.
Yeah.
I think he was put in a difficult position. I think he made some wrong decisions. But I think he did try. Whereas Buckley, he tried too, but it was for something else. So
Yeah.
But no, I think it's interesting, and it's a part of the world that you don't. I don't know. I keep coming across things in Patagonia lately. Patagonia has come up like 5 times since I started this book, I feel like.
Huh.
So, yeah.
Interesting.
But it's a area of the world where we don't hear about much.
It's never come up for me in daily life.
Really?
No.
I've had like 4 or 5 things.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's now I'm just noticing it more or something, but yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I would definitely recommend this book. Read it.
I would say if you like ships, yes, read it.
I'd say read it if you even don't like ships.
I like ships. On
Yeah.
that note,
Read the book.
perhaps it's time we...
Time we bid farewell and adieu and to you Spanish ladies. So that's what we thought of this book.
But those are just our opinions, and we'd like to hear yours.
So leave us a comment,
Thanks for joining us for Between the Lines, and thanks to our editor, Linda.
and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
I like big ships and I cannot fly.